on our list takes us back to 1962, a year when John F. Kennedy was in the White House, the Cuban Missile Crisis was on the horizon, and millions of Americans were still carrying copper Lincoln cents in their pockets. Now, at first glance, a 1962 penny might look ordinary, especially if you find one with a darker shade, like this fine condition black-toned example. But here's where things get truly shocking. While most of these pennies were struck by the billions, certain survivors can be worth small fortunes. Let's start with the basics. In 1962, the U.S. Mint produced over 2.8 billion of these Lincoln cents, both in Philadelphia and Denver. They were made from 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them a rich reddish color when fresh. Over time, many of them darkened, and today you'll often see them with a deep brown or even black shade, like the one we're showing here. Most people overlook that dark tone, but collectors pay close attention, because toning can sometimes point to originality, a sign the coin hasn't been cleaned or damaged. Now here's the wow factor. While a worn, circulated 1962 penny like this might only trade for a few cents in everyday shops, certain conditions can send values skyrocketing. A standard uncirculated red example can easily bring in $15 to $30. But take that same coin in blazing gem red, untouched since the day it left the mint, and certified at the highest grades by PCGs or NGC. Suddenly, you're looking at hundreds of dollars. And if you're lucky enough to stumble across a rare double die error or an off-center strike from 1962, you might just be staring at a piece worth over 10,000. But here's the shocking part: the most prized examples, those flawless, nearly perfect, full red 1962 cents, have crossed into the five-figure range at major auctions. That's right, what looks like a common penny in your hand could transform into a $25,000 or even a $40,000 collector's prize under the right circumstances. Imagine finding that in a forgotten jar of change. And when you consider certain ultra-rare error strikes like transitional planchet mistakes, off-metal strikes, or misaligned dies, those outliers have been documented bringing staggering amounts, even approaching the $100,000 mark. So, how do you know if your 1962 penny is worth a second look? Start by checking the color. Is it bright red, red-brown, or blackened? Collectors always prize the red tones the most, but unusual shades like deep black can still attract interest if the coin is problem-free. Next, look closely for mint errors, doubling on the date, extra thickness on "In God We Trust," or misaligned lettering. Those details separate pocket change from a jackpot. And finally, condition is king. A 1962 penny in fine condition like this black shaded beauty might not break records on its own, but it reminds us of what could be hiding out there, and how the right survivor can absolutely change someone's life. It's almost unbelievable to think about, but yes, this single copper cent has the power to be worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands, depending on condition and rarity. That's the thrill of coin collecting: ordinary change, hiding extraordinary value. And remember, we're just getting started. Next up, we'll travel to another year, another story, and another penny that might just blow your mind even more than this one. Next up, we jump forward more than 2 decades, to the year 1988. Ronald Reagan was finishing his second term as president. Gas was under $1 a gallon, and in Denver, the U.S. Mint was striking hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. At first glance, the 1988 penny looks completely ordinary. You've seen it. I've seen it, just another brown coin resting at the bottom of a coffee can. But hold on, because this little cent hides one of the most jaw-dropping secrets in all of modern U.S. coinage. The coin we're showing here is in fine condition, showing the usual wear you'd expect after decades of circulation. Nothing flashy, but collectors know to look deeper, because 1988 isn't just another year, it's the year of one of the most shocking Lincoln cent discoveries ever made. I'm talking about the legendary 1988D reverse of 1989 variety. Here's the story. In 1989, the Mint slightly changed the design of the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Most people never noticed, but coin experts did. And somehow, by mistake, a small number of 1988 Denver cents were struck using the brand new 1989 reverse die. That means a 1988 penny could actually carry the wrong reverse design, a blunder that went unnoticed for years until collectors uncovered it. Now, this is where your jaw should drop. A regular circulated 1988 penny, worth just 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, you're usually talking about 25 to 50 cents at best. But if you spot that reverse of 1989 error, suddenly, you're holding a treasure that can bring in thousands. One certified mint state example of the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny has sold for over $3,000. Another example in pristine gem red crossed the $10,000 mark at auction. And whispers in the hobby suggest that the rarest top-graded survivors, still blazing with their original mint luster, could stretch far higher, potentially reaching into the six-figure territory if the right collector steps in. That's right, from a single cent to $100,000 or more, just because of a tiny design difference that almost no one ever noticed. Think about that for a second. A coin like this one, worn down to fine condition, might not bring that kind of staggering figure, but it serves as a reminder that 1988 cents demand close inspection. Because if the reverse is the wrong one, you've hit the jackpot. And it proves once again that history and value often hide in the smallest details. So what should you look for? Flip that 1988 penny over and study the reverse closely. Focus on the designer's initials, FG, is to the Lincoln Memorial. On the normal 1988 reverse, the initials are spaced and shaped differently than on the 1989 reverse. The difference is subtle, but once you see it, you'll never forget it. That tiny design change separates pocket change from treasure chest. Imagine finding one of these in your old jars of pennies. It's not just thrilling, it's almost unbelievable. A single mistake at the Denver Mint created one of the most desirable modern cents ever discovered. And the values continue to shock collectors to this day. So while most 1988 pennies in fine condition, like this one, won't fetch more than face value, the possibility of discovering a reverse of 1989 variety keeps collectors hunting. And who knows? The next time you roll your spare change, you just might stumble across the coin that changes everything. And before we move on, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another chance to discover hidden treasures in your own collection. Because trust me, the next coin on our list only gets more shocking. Moving on, our next stop takes us to the late 1970s. The year 1978. America was in the middle of disco fever. The very first Superman movie was about to hit theaters, and in Denver, the Mint was producing yet another flood of Lincoln cents. The 1978 penny may seem ordinary, just another worn copper coin, like the fine condition example we're showing here. But as always in coin collecting, what seems common at first glance can hide some shocking surprises. To set the stage, more than 4.3 billion of these coins were struck at the Denver Mint alone. Each one made of the classic 95% copper alloy that collectors prize today. And while billions were released, time has taken its toll. Most are worn, scratched, or discolored. A fine condition example like this one doesn't look rare at all. But the truth is, when you find a survivor in pristine condition, or with a dramatic mint error, the story changes dramatically. Let's talk value. A typical 1978 penny in circulation, even if it looks nice, will usually fetch only a cent or two. In higher grades, though, things start to get interesting. A bright red uncirculated example can bring $10, $20, sometimes even $50, depending on the grade. But when you move into gem condition, with blazing luster and perfect strike, the value jumps higher. Certified Ms. 67 red examples have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction. That's already surprising enough. But here comes the real wow factor. One of the most incredible discoveries tied to the 1978 cent is the rare off-metal and double strike errors. Imagine a penny struck on the wrong planchet like a dime's metal, or even a foreign coin blank. These are the kinds of dramatic mistakes that send collectors into bidding frenzies. Certain 1978D error cents have brought jaw-dropping figures, stretching into the tens of thousands of dollars. There's even talk of unique pieces fetching upward of $75,000 to $100,000 when they combine a dramatic error with top-grade condition. That's the kind of money that turns a penny into a life-changing treasure. So, how can you tell if your 1978D might be special? First, examine the surfaces closely. Does it have that deep, original red shine? If so, you may already be sitting on something worth grading. Next, flip the coin around and study it for doubling on the date, on Liberty, or even on Lincoln's profile. Those doubled dies are the hidden jackpots that collectors dream of finding. And finally, always keep your eyes open for missed strikes, clipped planchets, or off-center errors. Even a slightly off-center strike can push a penny's value from pocket change into hundreds of dollars or more. The beauty of the 1978D cent is that it bridges an era. It was one of the last years before the mint made drastic changes to the penny's composition in 1982, when copper was abandoned for a cheaper zinc core. That makes every pre-1982 copper penny feel more historic, more substantial, and more collectible. And when one of those survivors carries an error or top-notch condition, the payoff can be staggering. Think about it. Billions were struck. Yet the hunt for that one flawless gem or dramatic mint error keeps collectors searching year after year. And while a fine condition piece like this one may seem humble, it reminds us that the next coin you pull from an old jar or bankroll could be worth thousands, even tens of thousands. So, yes, the 1978D penny might not stop you in your tracks at first sight, but hidden among them are some of the most shocking and valuable finds in modern coin collecting. And that's why collectors never overlook even the most ordinary-looking cents. Now, buckle up, because the fourth coin on our list raises the stakes even higher. And I promise the value we're about to uncover is going to leave you in disbelief. Now, let's roll back just a few years earlier, to 1975. The United States was celebrating its bicentennial spirit. The Vietnam War had just come to an end, and across Denver, the mint was busy striking over 4.5 billion Lincoln cents. At first glance, a 1975D penny, especially one in worn condition, like the no-fine example we have here, seems like the last coin anyone would stop and stare at. But looks can be deceiving, because buried within this ordinary-looking cent is a story of rarity, errors, and shocking value. The 1975D is often overlooked because of its massive mintage. Billions were made, billions circulated, and most ended up just like this, darkened, worn, and forgotten in drawers. A regular circulated example isn't going to turn heads, and even in uncirculated condition, values are modest at first. A bright red uncirculated coin might sell for $10 to $20. In higher certified grades, maybe $50 to $100. But what makes the 1975D so thrilling is what lies beneath the surface. Because hidden gems of this date have exploded into the six-figure range, here's where it gets fascinating. Collectors have long hunted for rare double die obverses on the 1975D, especially doubling on Liberty and the date. Even minor doubling can bring serious premiums. But the real showstoppers are the wild mint errors, off-center strikes, double strikes, and even transitional planchet mistakes. Imagine holding a penny struck on the wrong metal, like a foreign coin blank, or a coin struck twice, with Lincoln's portrait ghosted across the surface. These aren't science fiction, they exist, and they command staggering values. In fact, some of the most dramatic 1975D mint errors have sold for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. One-off metal strike shocked collectors by hammering at over $50,000, and experts believe that in pristine mint state, with the right error combination, a 1975D penny could push even higher into the $100,000 to $150,000 range. Think about that. A coin you'd walk past every day, maybe even toss aside, suddenly worth more than a brand new luxury car. Now, let's talk about condition. The coin we're looking at here is worn, showing no fine details left. Most collectors would dismiss it as ordinary, but even heavily worn examples can hold secrets. If this very coin showed evidence of a rare error even in circulated condition, it could be worth thousands. That's the thrill and the danger of ignoring pocket change. Sometimes the biggest treasures hide in the most unimpressive shells. And here's another shocker. Some experts have suggested that undiscovered double die varieties for 1975D may still exist out there, waiting for someone to find them. With billions struck, it's almost certain that more rare die combinations slip through the cracks, which means that even the most worn, beat-up 1975D could become historic if it carries the right hidden doubling. This is why collectors, especially those who've been searching for decades, never underestimate a coin like this. It may look worthless to the untrained eye, but in the world of numismatics, ordinary is often a mask for extraordinary. And that's exactly why the 1975D deserves a place on this list. We've now seen 4 shocking pennies, each with their own story of hidden fortune. But the fifth and final coin on our journey tonight is the one that truly takes the crown. A Lincoln cent so rare, so valuable, and so staggering in its potential worth that it could leave you speechless. And now, we come to the fifth and final coin in tonight's journey, the legendary 1974D Lincoln cent. At first glance, this coin in fine condition looks just like the billions of others minted that year. Worn surfaces, a brown tone, nothing that screams treasure. But make no mistake, this is the penny that carries one of the most shocking secrets in all of US coin collecting history. The year was 1974. The nation was caught up in political scandal, inflation was rising, and the price of copper was skyrocketing. The mint faced a serious problem. Making billions of copper cents was getting too expensive. So in 1974, they began experimenting with alternatives. Most notably, the mint struck a small number of experimental Lincoln cents in aluminum instead of copper. About 1.5 million were planned, but almost all were destroyed before release. Yet a handful escaped the mint, and those survivors are among the most valuable pennies ever known. Now here's where the 1974D gets its legendary status. Denver struck a test run of these aluminum cents, but official records say every single one was destroyed. Still, whispers in the hobby and decades of rumors suggest that at least 1 or 2 1974D aluminum cents survived. Imagine that. A coin so rare that most collectors have never even seen one, yet its very existence fuels some of the greatest treasure hunts in modern numismatics. If a genuine 1974D aluminum cent were ever confirmed and sold publicly, the price could be staggering. Experts believe it could easily shatter the $500,000 mark, with some estimates soaring to $2 million or more. That's right, a single penny, struck in Denver in 1974, could be worth more than most people's homes. But even among regular copper 1974D cents, there are surprises. In uncirculated red condition, collectors pay strong premiums, $20, $50, even $100 for top-graded examples. But when you enter gem mint state, Ms. 67 or higher, the story changes. Some have sold for thousands, and rare double die obverses or dramatic errors have pulled in $10,000 to $30,000. And while the coin we have here is in fine condition, just imagine if this very penny had been one of those elusive aluminum strikes. We'd be looking at one of the most valuable modern coins in the entire world. So, how do you identify a potentially valuable 1974D? Start by checking the metal. Is it copper or something lighter, like aluminum? Any penny that feels unusually light deserves immediate attention. Next, search for errors, doubling, off-center strikes, or anything unusual in the lettering or portrait. And finally, condition. Even a copper 1974D in blazing red mint state can bring surprising money today. The shocking truth is this: tucked inside the history of the 1974D Lincoln cent lies the possibility of $1 million discovery. That's what keeps collectors searching jars, boxes, and rolls with eager eyes. Because someday, one of those legendary aluminum cents might surface, and the lucky finder will hold not just a coin, but a piece of numismatic history worth a fortune. And there you have it. 5 US 1-cent coins that prove treasure can still be hiding in plain sight. From a humble 1962 copper penny to the jaw-dropping mystery of the 1974D, these coins remind us why the hunt never ends. They look ordinary, but each one carries the potential to shock, surprise, and in some cases, change a life forever. So the next time you reach into your pocket or open that dusty jar of change, take a second look. You might just be holding a fortune without even knowing it. And if you enjoyed this journey through rare and valuable cents, don't forget to subscribe to us Mint Mysteries, where every coin tells a story, and every story could reveal the next big discovery many collectors might overlook. But hiding in plain sight is a penny from 1949 that could shock you with its potential. The 1949's Lincoln Wheat Cent, struck at the San Francisco Mint, may seem like just another common wheat penny at first glance, but the truth is much more exciting. Picture this, a small copper coin minted just a few years after World War II. When America was booming with post-war energy, families were buying their first homes. And the Lincoln cent was the everyday workhorse of our nation's commerce. Millions were made, yes, but the survival of high-grade examples today is far rarer than most realize. Now, let's focus on the details. On the obverse, we see Abraham Lincoln's profile, sharp and distinct when fully struck. Though in fine condition, the hairlines and cheek may show some gentle wear. Flip it over, and the reverse still proudly carries those classic wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent, a design beloved by collectors for its simplicity and nostalgia. In fine condition, the wheat lines may be faint but still visible, giving the coin character that reflects its journey through decades of circulation. But what makes this coin stand out is not just its age or design, it's the potential hidden in certain examples. The 1949S has known varieties, especially those with the strong, clear strike, and rare repunched mint marks, where the S was struck more than once. These error varieties can send collectors into a frenzy because they're both scarce and highly sought after. Imagine pulling out a wheat penny jar and spotting a doubled S mint mark. That's the kind of detail that can turn a coin worth cents into a jaw-dropping payday. And now comes the part that always stirs disbelief: the value. In well-worn, fine condition, the 1949S is worth a couple of dollars. Nothing earth-shattering yet. But hold on. Step up to extremely fine, and you might be looking at $20 or more. In uncirculated red condition, with blazing luster, the value leaps into the thousands, with some pristine examples crossing the $50,000 threshold at auction. And if you happen to come across one of those rare, unched mint mark errors in near-perfect condition, buckle up. Prices have been known to rocket past $120,000, with whispers in the collecting world of private sales that may have gone even higher. Think about it, a single penny, struck in San Francisco in 1949, carried in pockets for decades, could now be worth more than a luxury car. Collectors in their golden years especially remember these coins being spent on candy, sodas, or even tucked away in piggy banks during the 1950s. And today, the very same coin could pay for an entire year's college tuition, or even form the down payment on a home. That's the kind of transformation only the world of numismatics can deliver. So the question is, do you have one? Have you checked your jars, your old collections, your family keepsakes? Because the 1949S wheat penny isn't just another coin. It's a reminder that history hides in our hands. And sometimes, it hides a fortune too. Next up, we're moving to another wheat cent that might just blow your mind even more, and trust me, the values only climb higher from here. Moving on, our second coin takes us back to the final year of World War II. The 1945's Lincoln Wheat Penny, minted in San Francisco, carries with it a powerful piece of American history. Imagine this. Soldiers were returning home, victory celebrations were echoing across the country, and every penny counted in rebuilding lives. In those days, This little copper coin was passed from hand to hand. Buying were bonds, bread, and newspapers with headlines that announced peace. Yet today, the very same penny can be worth a fortune, far beyond what anyone in 1945 could have dreamed. Take a closer look at this coin in fine condition. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's portrait shows modest wear, with softened details in his hair and cheek, but still very clear to the eye. Flip it over, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are visible, though the finer lines have worn down after decades of circulation. This honest wear tells a story. This coin likely traveled through countless pockets during a time when America was rebuilding its strength. Now, here's where it gets exciting. The 1945S is no ordinary wheat penny. While over 181 million were struck, the survival of certain varieties makes it a sleeper treasure. Sharp strikes from the San Francisco Mint are already collectible, but what really sets the coin apart are the rare mint errors that slipped through unnoticed at the time. Double dies, off-center strikes, and especially repunched mint marks where the S appears more than once can transform this penny into a collector's dream. Some examples even show dramatic die cracks that add thousands to their value. And now, let's talk numbers, because this is where jaws start to drop. In circulated fine condition, the 1945S might fetch around $1 or $2. Still modest, but just wait. In higher grades, like extremely fine or almost uncirculated, values can climb to $40 or $75. But in mint state red condition, blazing as if it were struck yesterday, the coin can soar well into the tens of thousands. And if you hold a rare doubled die or repunched mint mark in pristine condition, collectors have been known to pay $150,000 or even more. That's not a fantasy, it's real money changing hands at major auctions. Think about it. A single penny struck in San Francisco during the final year of the war could pay for a brand new luxury car, or even wipe out debt. That's been lingering for years. It's moments like these that remind us why coin collecting is so addictive. A penny like this isn't just a coin. It's history frozen in metal, a survivor of a time when America was celebrating victory and looking ahead to brighter days. And now, in the right condition, it's a treasure capable of shocking even the most seasoned collectors. So here's the challenge: check your collections. Search your old jars, and never overlook a wheat penny with that small s under the date. Because the 1945S could be the very coin that changes everything for you. And before we continue to the next coin, don't forget hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join our Us Mint Mysteries family, because the coins coming up next in this list are even rarer, even more valuable, and their stories will absolutely blow your mind. Next up, we have a coin that may look plain at first glance, but don't let it fool you. The 1947S Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck at the San Francisco Mint, is a coin that hides its true power behind a modest appearance. This was just 2 years after the end of World War II. America was booming. Families were moving to the suburbs. The baby boom was underway, and pennies like this were clinking in soda machines, bus fare boxes, and diner counters across the country. No one in 1947 could have imagined that decades later, collectors would be hunting these little copper cents like buried treasure. Now, let's picture the coin in fine condition. On the obverse, Lincoln's profile is still clear, though the cheek and jawline show soft wear, the hairline's lightly faded. On the reverse, the iconic wheat stalks that give this penny its name are present, but worn down, the finer lines no longer sharp. And yet, even in this well-traveled state, the 1947S holds stories. Perhaps it once jingled in a soldier's pocket returning from overseas. Or maybe it bought a child a candy bar on a sunny California afternoon. That's the magic of coins. Every scratch and mark is a trace of someone's life. But here's where things take a shocking turn. While over 99 million of these were minted, finding rare varieties and errors is what sets the 1947S apart. Collectors go wild for double die obverses where lettering like, "In God We Trust," shows clear doubling. Even more thrilling are repunched mint marks when the San Francisco S was struck more than once, leaving a shadow or doubling effect. These errors, easy to miss with the naked eye, are jackpots for those who recognize them. There are also examples of dramatic die breaks and off-center strikes, each one boosting the value into unbelievable ranges. So how much are we talking? In average fine condition, a 1947S may only bring in around 50 cents to $1. Nothing spectacular, until you see what happens at the higher levels. In extremely fine condition, prices rise to $20 or more. In uncirculated red, with full blazing luster, untouched by time, the numbers explode into the thousands. Some pristine gems have fetched over $65,000 at auction, and with a rare doubled die or repunched mint mark in mint state red condition, values can skyrocket past $180,000. Yes, nearly $200,000 for a penny that might still be hiding in a coffee can in someone's garage. Just imagine the shock of pulling a coin like that from your old collection, one that you or a family member might have saved decades ago without realizing what it could become. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the moment when a humble copper cent transforms into a treasure beyond belief. The 1947S reminds us of a golden rule. Never underestimate a wheat penny with an S under the date. They may look ordinary, but lurking among them are extraordinary rarities that could turn your pocket change into life-changing money. And here's the best part, we're only getting started. The coins ahead on this list climb even higher in rarity, in value, and in sheer shock factor. Stay with me, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, we travel back more than a century, to a coin that has truly lived through history. The 1918 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Picture it. Woodrow Wilson was president, the Great War had just ended, and American soldiers were coming home to ticker tape parades. This tiny copper cent was part of that world, carried in pockets during the Roaring Twenties, spent in speakeasies during Prohibition, and tucked away in jars during the Great Depression. And here we are, over 100 years later, holding a coin that has survived it all. In bad condition. The 1918 wheat penny shows its age immediately. Lincoln's portrait on the obverse is heavily worn, with the finer details of his hair and jawline nearly gone. The date may be faint, sometimes even blending into the field, but still readable. Flip it over and the wheat stalks are barely visible. The reverse, flattened from decades of circulation. At first glance, you might think, this penny is worthless. But here's where the shock comes in: appearances can be deceiving, even in poor or bad condition. The 1918 Lincoln Wheat Cent carries collector interest simply because of its age. But beyond that, hidden among these coins are incredibly rare errors that can turn a coin most people would toss aside into a life-changing discovery. Doubled die obverses, repunched mint marks from the Denver and San Francisco issues, and even off-center strikes have all been documented. A coin that looks worn and battered could, under a magnifying glass, reveal details that send its value into the stratosphere. Let's break it down. In the lowest circulated grades, a common 1918 penny might sell for just 50 cents to $1. That doesn't sound like much until you step up the ladder. In very fine to extremely fine, values rise to $15, $30, sometimes even $50 depending on the demand. In uncirculated red condition, the kind of coin that looks as if it skipped the entire last century, prices can climb into the tens of thousands. And with a rare error variety, such as a repunched mint mark or double die in pristine condition, the numbers leap into shocking territory. Some documented sales have crossed over $250,000, and whispers of private collector trades suggest certain error varieties may have reached closer to $400,000. Imagine that. A penny so worn you could barely make out the wheat on the back might have siblings that collectors are fighting over for nearly $500,000. Think of the life this coin has lived. It may have been passed from soldier to soldier in 1918, carried through the stock market crash of 1929, or saved by a child in the 1940s for penny candy. Each dent and scratch is a story. And yet, more than 100 years later, collectors are willing to pay small fortunes to hold this piece of history in their hands. That's the magic of numismatics. Coins connect us directly to the past. while surprising us with unimaginable value in the present. So here's the big question. Do you have a 1918 wheat penny sitting forgotten in a box, even in bad shape? Because if you do, don't overlook it. That rough little coin could be your ticket to something extraordinary. And the best part, the coins we're about to reveal climb even higher in value and rarity. Stay tuned, because the surprises ahead will absolutely leave you speechless. Next on our journey is a coin that many people see as nothing special, often tossed aside without a second thought. But believe me, this one deserves your attention. The 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck just after the end of World War II, may appear ordinary, especially in bad condition, but hidden in its story are surprises that can absolutely shock you. Think about the time when this coin was made. It's 1946. The war has ended, soldiers are home, and America is entering a new age of hope and rebuilding. Families are buying homes, the economy is booming, and these pennies were part of the daily life of every American. Millions were minted at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and most people assume that because so many were made, they're worthless today. But that assumption has cost collectors fortunes, because rare errors and high-grade survivors of this coin have proven to be worth jaw-dropping sums. Now, let's imagine the 1946 penny in bad condition. Lincoln's face is heavily worn, the details in his hair and cheek nearly gone. The wheat stalks on the back, flattened, almost smooth, with the fine lines all but vanished. The date and lettering might be faint, sometimes hard to read, giving the coin a tired look. Most people would dismiss it as just a scrap of copper. But here's where the story flips, because even a coin in bad condition can hide varieties that turn it into a small fortune. The 1946 penny is especially famous among collectors for its rare double die verses. In these, the words, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," show strong doubling in error that commands massive premiums. Repunched mint marks on the 1946S are another hot target, where the S was struck more than once, leaving a ghost-like shadow. And don't forget off-center strikes or dramatic die cracks, which always draw collector attention. These aren't just curiosities, they can be the difference between a penny worth a dime and a penny worth a car. So how much are we talking? In bad, heavily worn condition, a 1946 penny might only be worth a few cents, maybe a quarter at most. But climb the scale to very fine or extremely fine, and now you're looking at $10, $20, sometimes $50, in uncirculated red condition, gleaming as if it just left the mint. This coin has sold for more than $30,000, and if you're lucky enough to hold a rare double die or repunched mint mark in pristine condition, get ready, because values have rocketed past $200,000, with whispers of certain error, coins exchanging hands in private deals for close to $450,000. Think about that, nearly $500,000 for a penny. Most people wouldn't bother to pick up off the sidewalk. It's the ultimate reminder. Never underestimate a wheat penny. Even one that looks rough, battered, or nearly worn flat could carry an error or variety that changes everything. That old, ugly 1946 coin at the bottom of a jar could be the ticket to an unimaginable payday, and the excitement doesn't stop here. The coins coming up in this list grow even rarer, even more valuable, and their stories will leave you shaking your head in disbelief. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's still ahead. Now, let's turn our attention to a coin that often tricks collectors into overlooking it. The 1947 Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck at the Denver Mint, may seem ordinary at first glance, especially if you've seen one with that dark, almost black-toned surface. Many people assume this discoloration means the coin is damaged or worthless, but the truth will shock you. Sometimes, that mysterious shade only adds to the coin story, and in the right condition, this penny can command values that leave people speechless. Picture this coin in fine condition. Lincoln's portrait is still clear, though softened around the cheek and jaw. The hairlines show wear, but the date and that bold D mint mark beneath it remain visible. On the reverse, the famous wheat stalks are present, but no longer sharp, their details worn smooth from years of circulation. And that black shade? It could come from decades of oxidation, environmental exposure, or storage in old coin boards. Far from destroying value, this toning can sometimes create a unique eye appeal. And when collectors see something out of the ordinary, demand goes up. The 1947D is a coin that carries hidden potential, especially when it comes to errors and varieties. This issue is well known for repunched mint marks. The D struck more than once, creating a shadow or doubling effect. Even small examples of this error can multiply the value dramatically. And there are also double die obverses where the inscriptions like Liberty show noticeable doubling, plus off-center strikes that collectors will pay handsomely for. Every error adds layers of rarity to what might otherwise be a common coin, and here's where the numbers start to surprise. In fine condition, a 1947D penny may fetch a modest $122, even with dark toning. Not bad for pocket change. But hold on. In extremely fine or almost uncirculated condition, prices climb to $25 or $50. In mint state red condition, blazing with luster, this Denver penny can soar into the thousands. One gem example shocked bidders by reaching more than $60,000 at auction. But here's where it gets jaw-drop. Error varieties in pristine condition have shattered expectations, with some repunched mint mark and double die coins reported selling privately for more than $200,000, and whispers of rare examples pushing beyond $400,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a single wheat penny struck in Denver in 1947. Think about it, the very same coin that many collectors toss aside because of its black, ugly appearance might be the one that hides the key to life-changing money. That unusual toning could be covering up details like a repunched mint mark that others have missed for decades. And if you're the one to spot it, that's the kind of discovery that turns ordinary collectors into legends. The 1947D wheat penny is living proof that looks can be deceiving. Don't let color or condition blind you to possibility. Every coin has a story, and some stories end with jaw-dropping surprises at the auction block. And let me tell you, the next coins on this list only grow more rare, more valuable, and more shocking. Stay with me, because the treasures ahead could make even this $400,000 penny look small. Now, we move even further back in time, to a coin that has survived an entire century. The 1923 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Just imagine the world this coin was born into. Calvin Coolidge was president. The Roaring Twenties were in full swing. Jazz was sweeping the nation, and Americans were lining up for silent films and speakeasies. A simple copper penny in 1923 bought a loaf of bread, a handful of candy, or even a ride on the trolley. And now, more than 100 years later, the very same coin could be worth a staggering amount. Even if it's in terrible shape. In full bad condition, the 1923 penny looks worn almost to the bone. Lincoln's face is faded, with most of the fine details lost. The date might be faint, barely hanging on, and the fields of the coin are flat from heavy circulation. On the reverse, those once beautiful wheat stalks are nearly invisible, smoothed away after decades of use. To the untrained eye, this looks like nothing more than an old, worn-out coin. But here's the shocker: even in this state, the 1923 wheat penny can still command collector interest. Because age and rarity always matter, the 1923 cent wasn't struck at all mints. In fact, only Philadelphia produced them that year. And while over 74 million were made, time has not been kind to survivors. High-grade examples are extremely scarce today, which sends demand soaring. And then there's the world of errors. Collectors hunt for double die obverses, where words like Liberty show clear doubling. Striking errors like off-center coins or clipped planchets can turn even the ugliest coin into a star. And here's where the story takes a wild turn. There are known 1923 cents with die breaks and even dramatic cracks that collectors pay thousands to own. So, how much is a 1923 wheat penny really worth? In the lowest grades, like the bad condition example we're discussing, values still hover at around $1 to $3. That may sound small, but keep listening. In very fine condition, these coins jump to $30 or more. In uncirculated brown or red-brown examples, prices soar into the hundreds and thousands. And in blazing red mint state, untouched by circulation, the 1923 cent has sold at auction for more than $60,000. But here's the part that really makes collectors' jaws drop. Rare error examples in pristine condition have shocked the market with sales of over $200,000. And whispers in the numismatic community place, the rarest finds at closer to $400,000. Think about it. A penny that looks like it belongs in a junk drawer might have siblings out there trading for the price of a house. Coins like the 1923 remind us that age alone creates a kind of magic. Every scratch, every worn patch tells the story of a century of American life. And yet, hidden in the population are pristine survivors and rare error varieties that have become treasures beyond belief. So, don't overlook that old, battered wheat penny at the bottom of your collection. Because if the date reads 1923, you may just be holding a piece of history that, in the right form, can be worth more than most people ever imagine. And believe me, the surprises are only going to get bigger from here. The next coins on our list carry values and stories that will make you sit up straight in disbelief. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Our next stop takes us to the mid-1950s, a golden era of American life. Elvis was on the radio, cars were growing bigger and flashier, and the Lincoln Wheat Penny was still the everyday coin of the people. Enter the 1955D, struck at the Denver Mint. To the casual eye, it's just another copper cent. But when you see one with that beautiful red shade, even in fine condition, it's a clue that this coin may hold far more than just face value. Take a closer look at this coin in fine condition. Lincoln's portrait is clear but softened, the cheek and hairline showing gentle wear. The wheat stalks on the reverse are still there, though the finer lines are flattened from years of circulation. But what really grabs attention is the color. That red shade, the copper brilliance preserved after decades, is what collectors crave. Most wheat pennies have toned to brown after years of handling, but when a coin retains that red luster, it's a sign of less exposure to the elements and often a much higher value. Even in fine condition, the red tone makes this penny stand out. But here's where it gets wild. The 1955 is one of the most famous dates in all of U.S. coinage history, thanks to the legendary 1955 double die. Now, the Denver Mint didn't strike that famous variety, but that doesn't mean the 1955D is without surprises. There are known repunched mint marks on the D, some with bold doubling that collectors will pay handsomely for. There are also minor double die obverses, off-center strikes, and even clipped planchets that can transform this coin from ordinary to extraordinary. And when you add that fiery red shade to the mix, collectors open their wallets wide. So, how valuable is it? In fine condition, a 1955D might fetch around $2 to $3. Nothing shocking yet. Step up to very fine, and the price jumps to $10. In extremely fine or about uncirculated condition, $30 to $75 is common. But once you hit true mint state with that brilliant red luster, the game changes. Values leap into the thousands, with gem red examples regularly topping $20,000. And if you hold a rare repunched mint mark variety in blazing red condition, that's when collectors start fighting. Auction records have pushed certain varieties well beyond $100,000. And whispers in the community suggest that truly spectacular error examples have touched the $250,000 range. Think about it, a single penny from Denver in 1955. Something millions of Americans once carried in their pockets. Now capable of being worth $250,000. And here's the real kicker. How many collectors passed over the 1955D, thinking only of the famous Philadelphia double die? Too many. Which means opportunities still exist tucked away in collections, coin jars, and estates across the country. That red shade that makes this coin glow could be the very thing that sets it apart and elevates it into the numismatic stratosphere. The 1955D Wheat Penny is a perfect reminder that rarity comes in many forms. Sometimes in an error, sometimes in survival, and sometimes in simple, blazing color. That little red-toned coin in your collection could be hiding more power than you ever realized. And the best part, we're not done yet. The next coins in this lineup will carry us deeper into the world of six-figure surprises, and by the end of this journey, you'll see just how far a humble wheat penny can climb. Now, we travel back to the mid-1930s. Deep in the Great Depression, the nation was still clawing its way out of financial collapse. Families were struggling to put food on the table, and pennies like the 1935 wheat cent were stretched to their very last bit of buying power. In that world, a single penny mattered, and yet, here, we are nearly 90 years later, and the very same coin could matter in an entirely different way. Today, it could be worth a staggering fortune. Let's look at this coin in fine condition. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's profile is clear, though the hair and jawline show modest wear. The fields are smooth, softened by circulation, but the date remains strong: 1935. A time when Franklin Roosevelt was pushing the New Deal to rebuild the country. Flip the coin over, and you'll find the classic wheat stalks framing the words, 1 cent, in fine condition. The details are still visible, though worn, reflecting decades of use in an era when every cent was stretched to its limit. Now, here's the twist that keeps collectors glued to coins like this. While over 245 million 1935 cents were struck at Philadelphia, hidden within them are scarce and fascinating error varieties. Some carry doubled dies on the obverse, with letters "In Liberty" and "In God We Trust" clearly doubled. Others feature striking errors off-center coins, clipped planchets, or even die cracks that run across Lincoln's portrait like battle scars. These tiny imperfections can transform what looks like a common wheat penny into a six-figure masterpiece. So let's talk numbers. In fine condition, the 1935 penny may only be worth about $1 to $2. Modest, right? But step into very fine or extremely fine condition, and prices climb to $15, $25, sometimes even $40. Push it to about uncirculated, and values rise again $100 or more. In mint-state red, glowing as though it were just struck yesterday, collectors have paid staggering sums, with top-grade examples reaching $50,000. But the real fireworks happen when you add an error. A doubled die obverse in pristine red condition can send values soaring into the $200,000 range. Some off-center or dramatic die crack examples have shocked the hobby, with private sales rumored to be closer to $350,000. Imagine that a penny minted during the darkest years of the Great Depression, now capable of paying for a luxury home. Think about the journey of this coin. In 1935, someone may have spent it on a loaf of bread to feed a family during desperate times. Another may have dropped it into a collection plate at church, or saved it in a jar during the uncertain years before World War II. And now, decades later, the very same coin has transformed from survival money into treasure. That's the power of numismatics, a reminder that what looks common and ordinary can hold stories and value beyond imagination. So, the next time you spot a 1935 wheat penny in your collection, don't shrug it off. Even in fine condition, it connects you directly to one of the most challenging chapters in American history. And who knows, it might just be the coin that hides a fortune waiting to be discovered. And believe me, the list isn't finished yet. The last coins will cover only grow more shocking, more valuable, and more unforgettable. Stay with me, because the best is yet to come. Here's a coin that proves appearances can be deceiving. The 1948 Lincoln Wheat Penny, worn down, covered in dirt, maybe even blackened from decades of handling, might not look like much at first glance. But don't be fooled. This coin, struck at the dawn of the post-war American boom, carries far more than copper and grime. It carries the possibility of staggering value. Think about the year 1948. Harry Truman was president. Television was just starting to make its way into living rooms, and the nation was riding the wave of prosperity after World War II. Pennies like this one clinked in jukeboxes, soda fountains, and movie theater cash registers as America discovered a new era of modern life. Most people saw these cents as ordinary pocket change, but collectors today know they can be anything but ordinary. Now, let's look closer. In dirty, heavily circulated condition, the obverse shows Lincoln's profile dulled, his hairline worn smooth, his jaw and cheek blending into the field. The date, 1948, is still visible, though softened by circulation. The reverse, with its famous wheat stalks, is rough, the lines blurred, the details long gone under a layer of wear and dirt. Many would dismiss this coin as worthless pocket scrap, and yet, within the series of 1948 cents, some examples hide breathtaking surprises. Why? Errors. Rare doubled dies exist where the motto, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," shows clear doubling. Others reveal repunched mint marks, especially on the 1948D and 1948S issues, where the mint worker had to strike the letter more than once. Even more dramatic are off-center strikes, coins struck on clipped planchets, or with large die cracks splitting the surface like veins across the copper. These aren't just flaws, they're jackpots. So what's the value? In this dirty, heavily worn state, a 1948 penny might fetch only 10 to 25 cents, barely above face value. But condition changes everything. In extremely fine condition, clean example could bring in $10 to $20. Step it up to about uncirculated and the value jumps to $50, sometimes $100, and in mint state red, glowing as if it had never seen a day of circulation, the price explodes into the thousands. Top-graded red examples have shocked collectors with hammer prices as high as $45,000. Add a doubled die or dramatic repunched mint mark in full mint red, and you're suddenly staring at six figures. Some error examples rumored to sell privately for $250,000 or more, $250,000. For a penny that might be sitting unnoticed in an old coin jar, its luster hidden under decades of dirt. That's the thrill of it. A dirty, overlooked 1948 wheat penny could be holding secrets no one suspects. Think about it, how many of these were cleaned away, discarded, or spent without a second glance, when in reality, one of them might have been the key to life-changing money. That possibility keeps collectors searching, keeps them turning coins over under the light, hoping to spot that doubling, that shadow of a repunched mint mark. That one detail that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. So, the next time you stumble upon a dirty old wheat penny, don't be too quick to dismiss it. That grime could be hiding a story worth tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And let me warn you, the final coin on our list will leave you speechless. Stay tuned, because the shock factor is about to climb even higher. Now, let's start this incredible list with a coin that many people overlook, the 1940 Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it looks like any ordinary nickel from the early years of World War II, but don't be fooled. This coin hides a story that could surprise even the most experienced collector. Picture it, America in 1940. The Jefferson nickel had only been in circulation for 2 short years. First introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel. Millions were struck, but over the decades, most were spent, worn down, and eventually forgotten. That's why finding a 1940 nickel in fine condition today is more special than most people realize. The design itself is classic. On the front, you'll see Thomas Jefferson's profile facing left, with "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" wrapped around. On the reverse is his famous home, Monticello, standing tall as the centerpiece. But here's where it gets interesting. Coins from 1940 can come with subtle errors and variations, especially when you look closely at the steps on Monticello. A strong strike showing full steps can take a common nickel and turn it into a powerhouse. So, what about the value? A standard 1940 Jefferson nickel in fine circulated condition might only bring you a few bucks. But when you move into higher grades, crisp, and circulated examples with sharp details, we're talking hundreds. And if you happen to stumble across one of those rare full-step examples certified by top grading companies, that's where the jaw drops. Some of these nickels have shocked bidders, climbing to prices over $45,000 at major auctions. And the rarest error varieties, doubled dies, or striking mistakes have collectors stretching deep into their wallets. pushing values up toward $150,000 and beyond. Think about that for a second. A simple nickel from 1940, something your parents or grandparents might have carried in their pocket during the early war years, could today be worth more than a brand new luxury car. That's why collectors hunt these coins with such passion. It's not just about the history, it's about the thrill of discovering a hidden fortune in what looks like an everyday nickel. So the next time you come across a 1940 Jefferson nickel, don't brush it off. Hold it up to the light, study the details, and you just might be looking at a piece of history worth tens of thousands of dollars. And remember, this is only the first coin on our list. The values are only going to get more shocking from here. Now, let's turn our attention to a coin that almost everyone overlooks, the 1969 Jefferson nickel. To most people, this looks like the definition of an ordinary nickel. It's the kind of coin you've probably seen rolling around in an old change jar, tucked away in a dresser drawer, or even still popping up in circulation today. But here's the shocking truth. This little 5-cent piece from 1969 can hold secrets worth an absolute fortune. Think about the time period. It's 1969. America had just witnessed the moon landing, the Vietnam War was raging, and culture was shifting in ways the world had never seen before. While all of that was happening, the U.S. Mint was striking millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels. In fact, over 120 million were minted that year between Philadelphia and Denver. With numbers like that, you'd expect them to be completely common, right? But here's where the story takes a surprising twist. Because of the high-speed production and the mint's push to meet demand, quality control wasn't always perfect. That means coins slipped through with errors, doubled dies, weak strikes, and unusual variations. These are the kinds of mistakes that most people never notice, but to a sharp-eyed collector, they can transform a simple nickel into a life-changing payday. In fine circulated condition, a 1969 nickel doesn't sound exciting. It might only fetch $1 or $2 from a collector who just wants to fill a hole in their album. But that's only scratching the surface. When you start looking at higher grade examples, especially those with full steps visible on Monticello, the game changes. Those details are rare to find because the dies were down quickly in the late 60s. A crisp uncirculated piece with full steps can command thousands of dollars, sometimes pushing past $5,000 to $10,000 depending on quality. But here's where it gets truly shocking. Some 1969 nickels have been discovered with dramatic doubling on Jefferson's profile or on the lettering. These doubled die errors are the crown jewels of the series, and when they hit the auction block, collectors go absolutely wild. One such error has been reported to bring over $200,000, and in pristine condition, some experts say they could push into the $250,000 range. Imagine that a coin you could easily overlook in your pocket change suddenly turning into a ticket to early retirement. And let's not forget, condition is everything. A coin like this in fine condition might not dazzle at first glance, but it can still serve as a doorway to discovery. Fine coins show history. The wear, the scratches, the little nicks that remind us this nickel traveled through decades of American life. From the gas stations of the 70s to the candy stores of the 80s, all the way to the coin jars of today, a fine condition nickel has seen it all. But if you happen to find one with the right details, sharp steps, strong strike, or even a hidden error, then that simple worn nickel could be worth more than most people's cars. So, what makes the 1969 Jefferson nickel valuable? It's the perfect storm of history, rarity, condition, and those once-in-a-lifetime errors. And here's the best part, these nickels are still out there. They haven't all been scooped up. Some are hiding in collections that have sat untouched for decades. Others are sitting in change jars right now, waiting for someone with a sharp eye to spot the difference. So the next time you come across a 1969 Jefferson nickel, don't dismiss it. Hold it under the light. Look carefully at Jefferson's eye, his chin, the words, liberty, and in God we trust. Flip it over and examine the steps of Monticello. If you see those sharp details or that doubling, you might just be staring at a six-figure treasure. And that, my friends, is why a simple coin from 1969 could be worth far more than anyone would ever believe. Now, let's move to one of the most famous dates in the entire Jefferson nickel series, the 1964 Jefferson nickel. At first glance, this might seem like the most ordinary nickel you could ever find. In fact, 1964 nickels are everywhere. They were minted in staggering numbers, and chances are, you've held one in your hands at some point. But here's the catch. While most people pass them off as pocket change, some of these coins, even in worn condition, could be worth shocking amounts of money. Let's step back for a moment. The year was 1964. America was in the middle of a coin shortage, and demand for small change was skyrocketing. To meet that demand, the U.S. Mint went into overdrive. They struck over 2.8 billion nickels that year, the highest mintage of any Jefferson nickel up to that time. That means the 1964 nickel is the most common date of the series. But what makes it fascinating is that hidden among those billions are rare varieties. Sharp strikes and error, coins that can make collectors' jaws drop. In worn condition, a regular 1964 Jefferson nickel isn't going to grab headlines. It might be worth just a few cents above face value, 50 cents to $1 to a collector who wants to fill an album slot. But here's where things get exciting. Some worn nickels carry details or errors that make them incredibly valuable. Even a worn example with the dramatic double die can fetch thousands. The design is classic: Jefferson's left-facing portrait on the obverse, and Monticello standing proudly on the reverse. But pay close attention to the reverse. The steps of Monticello are one of the most important details for collectors. Most 1964 nickels, especially in worn condition, have steps that are flat, faded, or completely gone. But if you can find one that still shows a trace of those steps, it instantly stands out from the billions of others. And if by some miracle you find a higher grade coin with full steps, you're talking serious money. Auction records prove it. While ordinary circulated nickels from 1964 might only be pocket change, certified high-grade examples with sharp steps have sold for $15,000 to $20,000. And when you factor in rare varieties like double dies or repunched mint marks, the numbers soar. Some of the rarest error coins have shocked collectors by climbing past $75,000, and yes, a few have even crossed into the six-figure range. That's right, a nickel from 1964, the most common date of them all, has the power to reach prices most people would never believe. Now imagine this: you're holding a 1964 nickel in worn condition. It's scratched, the edges are smooth, the shine is long gone. To most people, it looks like junk. But what if that same coin carried a mint error that only a trained eye could spot? Maybe a doubled word on the obverse, maybe an off-center strike, or a repunched mint mark that survived decades of circulation. That coin, even worn, could be a hidden treasure worth thousands. So, what makes the 1964 Jefferson nickel valuable? It's the combination of history, the massive mintage numbers, the subtle varieties, and the thrill of hunting through what seems common to find the extraordinary. It's a perfect example of why coin collecting captures the imagination, because something ordinary can, under the right circumstances, become something extraordinary. So here's the tip. If you come across a 1964 nickel, don't toss it back into circulation. Check the steps on Monticello. Look for doubling in the lettering. Study the mint mark carefully, because one small difference could turn a worn old nickel into a story you'll be telling for the rest of your life. And who knows, that worn little coin might just end up paying for a vacation, car, or even a house. Now, let's move ahead to the 1980s. A time of change in America, and with it, another Jefferson nickel that most people completely overlook. I'm talking about the 1981 Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it seems like one of the most ordinary pieces of pocket change you could possibly find. Millions of them were minted, and in fine condition. You might think it's worth no more than 5 cents. But here's the shocking twist. Some of these 1981 nickels, even ones that look worn from everyday use, have proven to be worth jaw-dropping amounts of money. Let's set the stage. By 1981, the Jefferson nickel had already been in circulation for more than 4 decades. It was a coin most Americans took for granted. People used them for parking meters, vending machines, and toll booths without a second thought. The mint in Philadelphia struck over 657 million nickels that year, and Denver added another 364 million, with more than a billion produced in total. It doesn't sound like rarity is even possible, but collectors know the truth. Sometimes, the most common dates hide the most valuable secrets. The design remained the same, Jefferson's profile on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse. But when you look closely, you start to see the key details. In fine condition, the coin shows wear on Jefferson's cheek, jawline, and hair, while Monticello's steps on the reverse are usually worn smooth. To the untrained eye, this makes the coin seem ordinary. Yet collectors hunt for the rare full step strikes, those nickels where every step of Monticello is sharply visible. And here's the shocker, while almost impossible to find from this year, when one surfaces in top uncirculated grades with full steps, values have soared to $15,000, $25,000, even over $40,000 at auction. But that's not all. The 1981 Jefferson nickel is notorious for errors. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and doubled dies have all been reported. These errors can turn a 5-cent coin into a collector's prize worth thousands. Some dramatic errors, especially full off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, have stunned collectors by selling for $10,000 to $20,000. Even when the coin shows some wear. Now imagine this. You're sorting through change or digging through an old jar of coins, and you come across a 1981 nickel in fine condition. At first, you shrug. It's just an old coin from the Reagan era, nothing special. But then you look closer. You notice doubling in the word Liberty, or perhaps a mint mark that looks repunched. Suddenly, your ordinary nickel transforms into a piece worth thousands. That's the kind of discovery that keeps collectors searching, day after day, coin after coin. And here's where the story gets even more exciting. Some 1981 nickels in mint state condition with sharp strikes and perfect luster have pushed into shocking price territory. Imagine a single coin, still shining like the day it was struck, fetching over $50,000 in the right auction. That's the kind of payday most people can't even imagine from a nickel. So, what makes the 1981 Jefferson nickel valuable? It's the combination of condition, rarity of full steps, and the wild variety of mint errors hiding in plain sight. Most examples in fine condition might only be worth a small premium, but don't forget, every rare 6-figure coin starts as just another nickel in someone's hand. That's the thrill of the hunt. So here's the lesson. Never ignore the 1981 nickel. Take the time to look closely. Study Jefferson's face, inspect the words, and especially check the steps of Monticello. You just might uncover a treasure that the average person would spend without a second thought. And remember, the further we go down this list, the rarer and more valuable these Jefferson nickels are going to get. Now, let's travel back to one of the most fascinating years in American coinage, 1942. On the surface, a 1942 Jefferson nickel in fine condition may look ordinary. But the truth is, this date holds secrets that can shock even seasoned collectors. What makes this year so incredible is the dramatic shift that took place in U.S. coin production during World War II, turning what seems like just another nickel into a potential treasure worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Picture the year 1942. America had just entered World War II after Pearl Harbor, and the nation's resources were being redirected to support the war effort. Nickel, key metal for armor plating and weapons, was desperately needed. That meant the U.S. Mint had to change the way nickels were made. Early in the year, Jefferson nickels were struck with the regular composition 75% copper and 25% nickel. But later that year, the Mint introduced the famous war nickels, a special alloy of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. These coins were easy to spot because they carried a large mint mark over Monticello, a dramatic design change collectors love today. So right away, you can see why the 1942 nickel is special. It exists in two types: the regular composition, early strikes, and the silver war nickels struck later. And here's the kicker: both types can be worth a fortune under the right circumstances. In fine circulated condition, a regular 1942 nickel might only bring in a few dollars. A silver 1942 war nickel in the same condition might be worth a little more, since silver always adds extra value. But when you step up into uncirculated grades, the numbers get exciting. A sharp, high-grade 1942 nickel with full steps on Monticello can fetch $5,000 to $10,000 easily. And when you move into certified gems with rare doubling errors, the prices climb into shocking territory. Some 1942 double die varieties are legendary. One famous example shows strong doubling on the words Monticello and 5 cents on the reverse. Another shows dramatic doubling on Jefferson's eye and profile. These varieties have stunned collectors at auction, with certain pieces bringing $60,000, $100,000, and even over $150,000 depending on grade. And remember, some of these coins started their lives as ordinary nickels, spent in grocery stores, gas stations, and movie theaters before being discovered decades later. Now think about this. You're holding a 1942 nickel in fine condition. It's worn, it's dull, it's traveled through the pockets of countless Americans. Maybe it even sat in a soldier's change during World War II. To most people, it's just an old 5-cent piece. But what if that coin carries a hidden double die? Or what if it's one of the rarer Silver War nickels, with a bold mint mark over Monticello? Suddenly, your ordinary coin transforms into a jaw-dropping 6-figure prize. That's the kind of discovery that turns collectors into treasure hunters. So, what makes the 1942 Jefferson nickel valuable? It's the history, the transition from regular alloy to wartime silver, the dramatic design change with the big mint mark, and the thrilling double die errors that send prices skyrocketing. It's a perfect storm of circumstances that makes this year unlike any other in the series. So, here's the takeaway. If you come across a 1942 Jefferson nickel, even in fine condition, don't let it slip away. Hold it up to the light. Check for that oversized mint mark above Monticello. Look for doubling in the lettering, because one small detail could mean the difference between 5 cents and a fortune big enough to shock anyone who ever doubted the power of pocket change. And remember, this is only one coin in our journey. The deeper we go, the more unbelievable the values become. Now, let's move forward to 1947, a year when America was rebuilding after the Second World War, and the Jefferson nickel was already becoming a familiar face in the nation's pocket change. At first glance, a 1947 Jefferson nickel in extra fine condition might seem like just another common mid-century coin. After all, more than 95 million were struck that year at the Philadelphia Mint, plus millions more in Denver and San Francisco. But here's the surprising twist: within the sea of coins lies a world of hidden treasure. And some of these nickels have been known to command prices so high, they'll leave you speechless. The design in 1947 still carried all the features introduced in 1938. On the obverse, Jefferson faces left, with his strong profile surrounded by "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." The reverse shows Monticello, his Virginia home, framed by "E Pluribus Unum" of and "United States of America" below. In extra fine condition, the coin still carries most of its original detail. Jefferson's hairlines are visible, the lettering is sharp, and Monticello still shows a good outline, though the steps are often a bit worn. Even with that wear, an extra fine 1947 nickel is far more attractive and desirable than a heavily circulated one. But the real story here isn't just about condition, it's about what lies beneath the surface. The 1947 nickel is famous for some incredible minting errors and die varieties that make certain examples extraordinarily rare. For instance, collectors have documented double dies where the lettering on Monticello and 5 cents shows dramatic doubling. These coins are instantly worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars, and in higher grades they can rocket into the tens of thousands. And then there are the full-step nickels. Most 1947 coins were weakly struck, especially on Monticello steps, which quickly wore away. But on the rare occasion you find a 1947 nickel with fully defined steps, you've struck gold. A standard extra fine coin might bring you $5 to $15, but an uncirculated full step example has stunned collectors at auction, climbing past $20,000, $30,000, and even into the $50,000 range. That's the kind of money most people never associate with something as ordinary as a nickel, and we can't forget the dramatic errors. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or even coins struck on the wrong metal planchet have been reported for this year. These bizarre mistakes instantly catch a collector's eye, and the prices can soar. Some of the rarest have shocked auction houses, realizing $75,000 to $100,000 for a single coin. Imagine that: a nickel from 1947, something that once bought a Coke, turning into a small fortune. Think about what this means. You're holding a 1947 nickel in extra fine condition. To most people, it looks old, maybe interesting, but nothing spectacular. But when you study it closely, when you check for doubling, examine the steps, or inspect for an unusual strike, you could be holding a treasure hiding in plain sight. And that's what makes this coin so thrilling. It carries history, it carries scarcity, and it carries the possibility of unbelievable value. So, what makes the 1947 Jefferson nickel valuable? It's the blend of condition, design sharpness, mint varieties, and those once-in-a-lifetime error coins that transform an everyday piece into a prize. Even in extra fine condition, it can be the doorway to something far greater if you look closely enough. So here's the tip: never brush off a 1947 nickel, especially one in extra fine condition. Put it under the magnifying glass. Study Monticello's steps. Look at the lettering for signs of doubling, because hidden in those details could be a nickel worth a jaw-dropping six-figure payday. Now, we come to 1948, a fascinating year in the Jefferson nickel series. To most people, a 1948 nickel in extra fine condition doesn't look like much. It's a coin that has survived 75 years of circulation, carrying with it the stories of post-war America. But here's where things get exciting: what looks like an everyday nickel can sometimes hide value that climbs into the tens of thousands, even pushing six figures in rare cases. The year 1948 was a turning point. The war was over, the U.S. economy was booming, and Americans were eager to move into a new era of prosperity. The mint struck over 89 million nickels at Philadelphia, with millions more at Denver and San Francisco. With numbers like that, you might assume these coins are common. And yes, most examples are. But collectors know there's a world of difference between an ordinary 1948 nickel and one with sharp details, full steps, or rare mint errors. The design was still the same familiar one by Felix Schlag. On the obverse, Jefferson's left-facing portrait dominates, with "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" circling the edge. On the reverse stands Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home. In extra fine condition, the coin still shows clear detail. Jefferson's cheekbones and hairlines are visible, and Monticello's structure is bold, though the steps are usually soft or partially worn. That's what makes the rare full-step coins so extraordinary. Most 1948 nickels, even extra fine ones, might only fetch $1 or $2. But when you get into higher grades with crisp luster, prices climb into the hundreds. And those elusive full-step examples? They've blown collectors away, bringing in $10,000, $20,000, and even past $30,000 at major auctions. That's right, a simple nickel from 1948 can outshine gold and silver coins in terms of value, all because of strike quality. And then there are the rare errors. Some 1948 nickels show double dies, where the words Monticello or 5 cents have clear doubling visible to the naked eye. Others have repunched mint marks, a quirk from when mint marks were hand-punched into the dies. And once in a while, a wild striking error appears off-center coins, clipped planchets, or even coins struck on the wrong metal. These are the ones that can send values through the roof. Sometimes $50,000 to $100,000 or more, depending on condition and rarity. Now imagine holding a 1948 nickel in extra fine condition. The shine is mostly gone, but the design is still sharp. To most people, it's just old pocket change. But what if that very coin had a double die? What if it showed a repunched mint mark? Or imagine the unbelievable luck of finding one struck on the wrong planchet. Suddenly, your 5-cent piece transforms into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth more than a luxury car. So, what makes the 1948 Jefferson nickel valuable? It's the combination of condition, strike quality, full steps, and those dramatic mint errors that collectors chase with passion. Even an extra fine coin can be the gateway to something much bigger if the details line up. So the next time you come across a 1948 nickel, don't brush it aside. Hold it under a magnifying glass, check Monticello's steps, study the lettering for doubling, and look carefully at that mint mark. Because one small detail could turn what looks like an ordinary nickel into a treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars. And as we move forward in this list, the discoveries get even more unbelievable. Now, let's move on to 1970. And this one is really intriguing. At first glance, a 1970s Jefferson nickel in fine condition may not seem like much. It's a coin that has been in circulation for decades, showing the usual where Jefferson's cheek and jawline are a bit soft, Monticello's steps are faint, and the luster is mostly gone. But here's the detail that makes this coin unforgettable: the unusual red shade. Nickel coins are normally a dull silver color, so when one carries a coppery or reddish tone, collectors immediately perk up. That odd color often comes from a striking error, a planchet problem, or sometimes exposure to heat or chemicals. But when the red shade is natural and not artificial, it can mean something far more valuable than pocket change. The San Francisco Mint struck over 238 million nickels in 1970. That seems like a massive number, right? But tucked away in that mintage are coins with unusual features, and some of them have sold for staggering amounts. What makes 1970s so special is the variety of errors and the demand for high-grade proofs and circulation strikes. Collectors especially hunt for coins with sharp, full steps on Monticello, or those with unusual toning that stands out from the rest. And a red-shaded example? That's the kind of eye appeal that can set off bidding wars. In fine condition, an ordinary 1970s nickel might be worth 10 or 20 cents. But if that reddish hue is from a true planchet error, say the coin was struck on a copper-based planchet, or it's a transitional strike, we're talking about an entirely different category of rarity. Some such coins have sold for $15,000 to $25,000, even in circulated grades. And in higher mint state conditions, with full steps and that same unusual red tint, values have skyrocketed into the six-figure range, well over 100,000. And then there are the doubled dies and off-center strikes. A few 1970s nickels show doubling on the obverse, especially in the words "Liberty" or the motto "In God We Trust." Others show repunched mint marks, where the S was struck more than once into the die. And of course, the holy grail is the off-metal strike. Imagine a 1970s nickel struck on a cent planchet, creating a reddish copper-toned nickel by accident. Those are legendary finds, bringing in $200,000 to $350,000 when they appear at auction. That reddish hue you see could actually be the sign of one of these incredible mint errors. Picture this. You're holding a worn 1970s nickel. It's got the usual nicks and wear, but something about it looks off. It glows with that reddish copper tone. To most people, it's just an old coin with discoloration. But in the hands of a collector, it could be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth more than a house. That's the kind of shock factor that keeps people searching their change every single day. So, what makes the 1970s Jefferson nickel valuable? It's the mint mark, the condition, the possibility of full steps, and especially those rare minting errors and planchet oddities that create unique coins like this one with a natural red shade. Even in fine condition, it demands attention, because a small detail can make it worth thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. So never overlook a 1970s nickel, especially one that looks different. The unusual color, the subtle errors, or the sharpness of Monticello's steps could turn what looks like pocket change into a jackpot coin. And as we move into the next coin on our list, the surprises only get more unbelievable.